I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel, where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. But for those of you who've been on this journey with us, welcome back, beautiful souls. Today we're stepping into something profound, something that might completely shift how you see reality itself. We're exploring Chapter 3 of the course, specifically the section called Perception versus Knowledge, and I have to tell you, this is where things get really interesting. Have you ever had one of those moments where you thought you knew exactly what was happening in a situation, only to discover later that you had it completely wrong? Maybe you were certain someone was angry with you, but they were actually dealing with their own stress. Or perhaps you judged someone's actions harshly, only to learn about the pain they were carrying that you couldn't see. We've all been there, haven't we? Those moments when we realize that what we thought we were seeing wasn't the whole truth, or sometimes wasn't the truth at all. This is exactly what the Course is pointing us toward today. It's asking us to question something so fundamental that most of us never even think about it. The difference between what we think we're seeing and what is actually true. The Course makes a revolutionary distinction between perception and knowledge. And understanding this difference isn't just academic. It's the key to inner peace, authentic relationships, and genuine spiritual awakening. Think about your day so far. How many judgments have you made? How many assumptions? How many times did you look at someone or something and think you knew exactly what was going on? The Course suggests that everything we think we're perceiving through our physical senses and interpreting through our minds is actually a very limited, very distorted version of reality. It's like we're all wearing colored glasses that filter everything we see. But we've been wearing them so long, we've forgotten they're even there. But here's the beautiful part, and this is why I'm so excited to share this with you today. The Course doesn't just point out the problem. It offers us a way home. It shows us how to move from the unstable, ever-changing world of perception into what it calls knowledge, a direct, immediate awareness of truth that doesn't depend on our physical senses or our interpreting minds. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds pretty deep. Is this going to be one of those abstract spiritual concepts that sounds nice but doesn't actually help me in my daily life? And I want to assure you that while we're going to explore some profound ideas today, everything we discuss has immediate practical applications. Whether you're dealing with challenging relationships, struggling with self-doubt, facing difficult decisions, or simply wanting to experience more peace in your everyday life, understanding the difference between perception and knowledge will give you tools you can use right away. Today, we're going to journey together through 3 key areas. First, we'll explore what the Course means by perception. And you might be surprised to discover just how much of what you think is reality is actually your mind's interpretation. Then we'll dive into the Course's understanding of true knowledge. Not the kind of knowledge you get from books or experience, but something far more immediate and transformative. Finally, we'll look at the practical path from perception to knowledge, because the Course isn't asking us to take a leap of faith into the impossible. It's offering us a gentle, step-by-step process of awakening. If you've been feeling like there has to be more to life than the constant ups and downs of what you're experiencing, if you've sensed that there's a deeper truth waiting to be discovered, or if you're simply curious about what it might feel like to see the world through completely different eyes, then this exploration is for you. So take a deep breath with me. Let's set aside everything we think we know for the next few minutes and open ourselves to a radically different way of seeing. Your willingness to question what you've always assumed to be true is already the beginning of the miracle. Are you ready? Let's begin. Let's start with a simple question that might shake up everything you think you know about reality. What if I told you that you've never actually seen the world as it truly is? Not once, not even for a single moment. I know that sounds impossible, right? After all, you're looking at this screen right now. You can see the room around you. You know what happened yesterday and what you're planning for tomorrow. But the Course in Miracles reveals something absolutely revolutionary. What we call seeing isn't really seeing at all. It's interpreting, filtering, and projecting our own inner world onto everything around us. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever been in an argument with someone you love, and you were both looking at exactly the same situation, but you saw it completely differently? Maybe you saw their actions as inconsiderate, while they saw them as helpful. You were both looking at the same facts, but somehow you were living in completely different realities. How is that possible? The Course explains this through its understanding of perception. According to the Course, perception is never neutral. It's always selective. Your mind is constantly choosing what to focus on, what to ignore, what meaning to assign to everything you encounter. And here's the kicker: these choices aren't random. They're being made by what the Course calls the ego. That part of your mind that's convinced you're separate from everyone and everything else. The ego doesn't just see the world. It creates the world you experience. It's like having a film director in your head who's constantly editing the movie of your life, deciding which scenes to emphasize, which emotions to highlight, and which storyline to follow. And this director has a very specific agenda: to prove that you're vulnerable, that others are threats, and that love is dangerous. Let me give you an example that might hit close to home. You walk into a coffee shop and the barista doesn't smile at you. In that split second, your ego mind goes to work. Maybe it decides this means you're not likable, or that people are rude these days, or that this is going to be one of those days. But what's actually happening? Someone didn't move their facial muscles in a particular way. That's literally it. Everything else, the meaning, the emotional charge, the story about what this says about you or them, that's all perception. That's all your mind's interpretation. And here's what's truly eye-opening. The Course teaches that this process happens with absolutely everything you think you see. Every person you meet, every situation you encounter, every emotion you feel, it's all being filtered through this perceptual system that's designed to maintain the illusion of separation. This is why the Course calls our usual way of seeing projection. We're not really seeing what's out there. We're seeing our own fears, judgments, and beliefs reflected back to us. It's like we're all walking around with these incredibly sophisticated projectors, casting our inner movies onto the screen of the world, and then believing that what we're seeing is objective reality. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. Recognizing this isn't meant to discourage you. It's meant to free you. Because once you understand that perception is a choice, you realize you have power you never knew you had. You're not at the mercy of a hostile world. You're the one deciding what kind of world you're going to see. The Course puts it beautifully. Projection makes perception. What you're experiencing isn't happening to you. It's coming from you. And if it's coming from you, that means you can change it. This is where hope enters the picture. If your perception of the world is creating your experience of the world, then shifting your perception can literally transform your entire life. You're not stuck with the reality you're currently seeing. You're not powerless in the face of circumstances. You have the ability to see differently, and when you see differently, everything changes. The question becomes, if the ego's perception is creating a world of separation, fear, and conflict, what would happen if we learned to see through different eyes? What would happen if there was another way of looking at everything? That's exactly where we're heading next, and I promise you, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about what's possible. Now that we've seen how perception creates the world of separation and conflict, Let me ask you something that might seem almost impossible to imagine. What if there was a way of knowing that didn't depend on your senses, your past experiences, or even your thoughts? What if there was a kind of awareness so direct, so immediate, and so certain that it could never be shaken by circumstances, never be threatened by loss, and never be confused by conflicting information? This is what A Course in Miracles calls knowledge. And I want to be very clear about something right from the start. This isn't the kind of knowledge you learned in school. This isn't information you can memorize, facts you can study, or concepts you can analyze. This is something entirely different. Something so fundamentally unlike our usual way of knowing that most of us have only glimpsed it in our most profound moments of peace, love, or spiritual connection. Think about a time when you felt completely at one with life. Maybe you were holding a newborn baby, watching a sunset that took your breath away, or experiencing a moment of deep meditation or prayer. In that instant, you weren't thinking about the experience. You were the experience. You weren't observing love, you were love. You weren't trying to understand peace, you were peace itself. That's the closest most of us come to what the Course calls knowledge. Here's what makes true knowledge so radically different from perception. Knowledge doesn't involve a subject and an object. There's no you looking at something out there. There's no separation between the knower and the known. It's pure being, pure awareness, pure unity. The Course describes it as being rather than having, because in knowledge, you don't have an experience. You are the experience. And here's something that might blow your mind. According to the Course, this knowledge isn't something you need to achieve or attain. It's what you already are at the deepest level of your being. It's your true nature, your authentic self, your real identity. All the seeking, all the learning, all the spiritual practices, they're not about getting something you don't have. They're about removing the barriers to what you've always been. The Course puts it this way: knowledge is not taught, but its conditions must be acquired. What does this mean? It means that knowledge isn't information that gets transferred from one mind to another. It's a state of being that emerges naturally when the conditions are right, when the ego's interference is set aside, when fear dissolves, when love is allowed to be what it is. This is why knowledge is described as eternal, unchanging, and completely certain. Unlike perception, which shifts constantly based on circumstances, moods, and interpretations, knowledge simply is. It doesn't depend on external conditions because it exists beyond the world of form. It doesn't change with time because it exists outside of time. It can't be threatened because there's nothing separate from it to pose a threat. But here's what I find absolutely beautiful about this teaching. The Course isn't asking you to take this on faith. It's not asking you to believe in some abstract philosophical concept. Instead, it's pointing to something you can actually experience. Right now, beneath all your thoughts and worries and plans, there's a part of you that already knows. There's a stillness that's always been there, a love that's never been touched by fear, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. You've felt it. Maybe not often, maybe not for long, but you've felt it. In those moments when time seemed to stop, when everything made perfect sense without any explanation, when you felt held by something larger than yourself, that was knowledge touching your awareness. The tragedy isn't that we don't have access to this knowledge. The tragedy is that we've been taught to value everything else more. We've been conditioned to believe that real knowledge comes from accumulating information, building experiences, and strengthening our individual identities. But the Course suggests that all of this activity actually moves us further away from the truth of what we are. This is why the spiritual path often involves unlearning rather than learning. It's about releasing our attachment to being right, to knowing better, to having figured it out. It's about becoming empty enough that truth can fill us, quiet enough that we can hear the voice of wisdom that's always been speaking, And here's the promise that the Course holds out for all of us. As we learn to distinguish between perception and knowledge, as we become willing to question our assumptions and release our judgments, we create space for this deeper knowing to emerge. We don't have to force it or manufacture it or earn it. We simply have to stop blocking it. The question becomes, if this knowledge is our true nature, if this peace and love and certainty are what we really are, then what's keeping us from experiencing them? How do we move from the world of perception into the realm of knowledge? That's exactly what we're going to explore next. And it's going to show you that the journey home to yourself is far more accessible than you might imagine. So here we are, standing at what might feel like an impossible gap. On one side, we have the world of perception, the realm of the ego where everything seems separate, where fear feels justified, and where we're constantly defending against threats that may not even be real. On the other side, we have the world of knowledge, this beautiful state of unity and peace that feels almost too good to be true. And you might be thinking, okay, this sounds amazing, but how on earth do I get from here to there? Here's the beautiful news. You don't have to make that journey alone. In fact, the Course teaches that it's impossible to make it alone, because the very idea of alone is part of the perceptual problem we're trying to solve. Instead, there's what the Course calls the Holy Spirit. Think of it as the divine translator, the bridge between these two worlds, the gentle guide who knows exactly how to help you shift from ego's fearful perception to Spirit's loving vision. Now, I know some of you might have resistance to religious language, and that's completely okay. Whether you call it the Holy Spirit, your higher self, divine wisdom, universal love, or simply that quiet voice of sanity within you, what matters is recognizing that there's a part of your mind that sees differently than the ego. There's a perspective available to you that's always oriented toward healing, connection, and peace. And here's what's absolutely revolutionary about how this works. You don't have to leap from perception to knowledge in one giant, impossible bound. The Course offers something it calls innocent perception or true perception, a way of seeing that uses the world of form but interprets it through love instead of fear. It's like learning to see with the Holy Spirit's eyes while you're still living in the world you've always known. Let me give you a practical example of what this looks like. Remember our coffee shop scenario from earlier? The barista doesn't smile, and your ego immediately creates a story about what that means. But what if, instead of going with that first interpretation, you paused and asked, how would love see this situation? Suddenly you might see someone who's having a difficult day, someone who's carrying burdens you know nothing about, someone who's doing their best in whatever circumstances they're facing. You're still seeing the same person, but now you're seeing them through the lens of compassion rather than judgment. That's innocent perception in action, using the world of form to practice seeing with love. The Course calls this process forgiveness, but again, this isn't the kind of forgiveness you might be thinking of. This isn't about pardoning someone for what they've done wrong. This is about recognizing that what you thought they did wrong was actually just your perception, your interpretation, your projection of your own inner state onto them. True forgiveness says, I was seeing this through the eyes of fear, but I'm willing to see it differently. And here's where it gets really practical and exciting. Every single interaction you have, every challenge you face, every moment of upset or frustration becomes an opportunity to practice this shift. Your difficult coworker isn't there to make your life miserable. They're there to give you a chance to choose love over fear. Your family dynamics aren't evidence that relationships are impossible. They're your perfect classroom. For learning to see innocence where you used to see guilt, the Course teaches that as you practice this kind of vision, something miraculous begins to happen. The world doesn't necessarily change, but your experience of the world transforms completely. you start to see that what you thought were problems are actually invitations. What you thought were attacks are actually calls for love. What you thought were obstacles are actually doorways to deeper understanding. This is how innocent perception serves as the bridge to knowledge. As you learn to see with love consistently, as you practice forgiveness in every situation, as you choose peace over being right again and again, you begin to remember what you really are. The barriers between you and knowledge start to dissolve naturally, not through force or effort, but through the gentle practice of choosing a different way of seeing. And here's what I want you to know. You don't have to be perfect at this. You don't have to get it right every time. The Holy Spirit meets you exactly where you are and works with whatever willingness you can offer. One moment of choosing love over fear, one instance of seeing innocence instead of guilt, one decision to ask, how would love see this? These small shifts create ripples that extend far beyond what you can imagine. The journey from perception to knowledge isn't about achieving some impossible spiritual state. It's about making a series of simple, practical choices to see differently. And as you make these choices consistently, you'll discover something beautiful. The peace and love and certainty you've been seeking weren't somewhere else. They were right here all along, waiting for you to remove the barriers you'd built against them. The question isn't whether you're capable of this transformation. The question is, are you willing to begin? What a journey we've taken together today. We've explored how the ego's perception creates a world of separation and conflict, discovered the eternal certainty of true knowledge that exists beyond our senses, and found the practical bridge that can carry us from fear to love, one choice at a time. But here's what I want you to remember as you go about your day. This isn't just beautiful spiritual theory. This is a living practice that can transform your very next interaction. Whether you're dealing with a challenging conversation, feeling triggered by someone's behavior, or simply wanting to experience more peace in your everyday moments, you now have a powerful tool. The simple question, how would love see this? I want to encourage you to try this just once today. Pick one situation. Maybe it's something that's been bothering you, or perhaps just the next person you encounter, and pause long enough to ask that question. Notice what shifts when you're willing to see through different eyes. You might be amazed at what happens when you choose innocent perception over the ego's interpretation. And remember, this is a practice, not a performance. There's no spiritual report card, no perfection required. Every moment of willingness, every choice to see differently, every decision to respond with love instead of react with fear. These are the small miracles that gradually awaken you to the knowledge of what you truly are. If this exploration has resonated with you, I'd love for you to share your experience in the comments below. What came up for you as we discussed the difference between perception and knowledge? Have you had moments in your life that felt like glimpses of that deeper knowing? Your insights and questions always enrich our community, and they often spark ideas for future videos. Speaking of which, if you found value in today's discussion, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps others discover this content when they're searching for answers to life's deeper questions. And if you haven't already, I'd be honored to have you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. We explore A Course in Miracles together every single day, diving deep into the teachings that can genuinely transform how you experience life, relationships, and your own spiritual journey. For those of you ready to go even deeper, I've created a special playlist that walks through the foundational concepts of the course step by step. You'll find the link in the description below, along with timestamps for today's video if you want to revisit any particular section. I also want to remind you that we have an amazing community forming around these teachings. In the comments, you'll often find people sharing their own insights, asking thoughtful questions, and supporting each other on this path of awakening. Don't hesitate to jump in. Your voice matters, and your journey matters. Before we close, I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from the Course. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Your true nature, that knowledge we talked about today, cannot be diminished by circumstances, threatened by loss, or confused by the ego's stories. It simply is, and it's patiently waiting for you to remember. Tomorrow, we'll be continuing our journey through Chapter 3, exploring how the Holy Spirit works in our daily lives to heal our perception. It's going to be another transformative discussion, and I can't wait to explore it with you. Until then, be gentle with yourself. Practice seeing with love when you remember to, and when you forget, simply begin again. The path to inner peace isn't about perfection. It's about persistence, compassion, and the willingness to choose differently. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your openness to these ideas. And thank you for being part of this beautiful community of seekers. I'll see you tomorrow for another deep dive into the wisdom that can change everything. Until then, may you walk in peace, see with love, and remember the truth of who you are.